past is history, the future mystery. This moment is the gift. Every second we're together.
It is so incredible for us to be with you. This is such a wonderful day for us. Today, Miracle Makers, we have with us online someone that is really going to chime in how to make a difference and possibilities and solutions for every problem that we're facing today. You're listening to Dr. Sarah Larsen. This is Miracle Makers at UBN. You're in the oldest studio in Hollywood, Sunset Gower Studios. And today, the difference that the miracle light that you are can make will be fully activated. My darling co-host husband, Greg Larsen, that gorgeous song, The Past is History, the Future Mystery. This moment is a gift. This moment, the gift, baby.
This moment and you plus this moment makes it an extraordinary gift. And I'm so blessed to be here with you today, my love.
I'm so grateful. What we're working on behind the scenes here at Miracle Makers is to really allow each miracle maker that comes into our fold to have access to the greatest wisdom and self-mastery so that we're able to fully realize all that we can do. And our guest today is a father, a husband, has an amazing career, has an amazing platform from which to make a difference in the world. He truly has taken his life and his message and has been amplifying it in order for those in the tribe, the Miracle Maker, the enlightened community, the Lightworker tribe, to have more and more resources. Our guest today on Skype is the founder of Elevate Films. He is an incredible human being that's had conversations live with people from the Dalai Lama to all of the luminaries, and is standing with Native Americans, is standing with people of the land, standing with Bernie Sanders as well. We've got with us Mikki Willis.
Woohoo!
Welcome, Mikki.
Thank you. I had no idea we had an in-studio audience.
We love UBN for all the ways it amplifies the greatest good that we can create in Hollywood. And the live in-studio audience was from time ago. The ancient ones are painted in the walls here. So, Mikki, what did I leave out about you in your bio that you'd love for me to highlight?
I think you pretty much covered it. You know, the nowadays father comes before any of it. So my bio and cards all say father/filmmaker. So that's it. Of course, husband goes with that too.
Yes.
It's so important for us to realize family values. I think we talk a lot about them in the media, and we hear them everywhere these days. And truly, the modern family doesn't look anything like it did with the media and what it's shown. We are, Mikki Willis, you are, Greg, you are the modern fathers that are paving the way for these new young men and women that are coming through. What skill sets they're going to need for the future world, we have no idea. The technology that we're using to interact with, even earlier this year, didn't exist. Facebook Live, all of these different resources that we're able to use have been created. And our children need great fathers, need great mothers to fully engage what's possible. And so let's start with the difference that you're making with, Mikki, this is for you, this question. What is modern day fatherhood like?
Well, I think it's really being there. That's what I've gotten from. I have a 2.5-year-old and a 5-year-old now, and my analogy is that if you, I learn a lot from biomimicry. The study of our biology and the way that nature works, and pretty much all of nature has some form of dependency on sunlight and moonlight, and it's no coincidence that we call Father Sun and Mother Moon. And so I believe that there's a need for a child to have the balance of those energies. But I also want to be clear that I know that there's a lot of single mothers out there and single fathers out there, and that doesn't mean that your child is now deficient of what they need, but it's understanding that there are certain energies. We all have father figures in our lives and mother figures, and it's understanding that there's a balance of time that's necessary for the kids. And my wife and I know that all the time. She'll say, I think they need daddy time, or I'll say, I think it's mommy time, and you can start feeling them pull towards one or the other or whatever it might need. And it's, if you really look at it in the way that a flower, it blooms when the sun comes out, and it closes up and sleeps during the moon, and it requires those. And if it has too much of one, too much sun, the plant dies. If it has, too much of the other, the same happens. So there's something within our DNA, within our system, that requires us to have that balance of the masculine and feminine.
It's so beautiful. Thank you, baby. If you will take that too, really quickly. What does modern fatherhood and parenthood mean to you?
I try to be to come from the heart. I don't know if men did that so much in the past, but to me, just to I like to be at their eye level when we talk or connect. I even do that when I coach. I get down on my knee all the time because I want them to even be looking down at me. And I really want to come from the heart so they know I'm not just listening, as a just from a brain, but really listening from my entire being and being
that
being
heart-to-heart connection, eye-to-eye connection. For me, it's so important. I went throughout the third world. I was educated and worked, and I didn't think I was going to be a mother. And when we met, I really wanted to do that well, to be a great mom. And I had self-esteem and self-confidence issues, and I had disorders out to wazoo that I was out in the world serving with in order to not face that those inner voices, that inner experience that I had when I stopped. And motherhood was something that I really wanted to do well. I wanted to be the best mom I could be for my daughter and our son. And I knew we were going to have a daughter first. I drew it out, and then a son. And when that's where my eating disorder stopped. She's now 11, so it's 12 years of healing, because I really wanted that love called her process happening, being born in my body, called out a way of being I'd never explored before. And I'm so grateful that was what came through. And when our son hit a certain age, we really wanted to highlight for him a father. And so I went back to work. The work world organized it to where I was out there, and you got to spend time with our son. And that biomimicry, Mikki, is so beautiful, because the science is showing us that our children imitate, and all imitates how we're being, not what we're saying, not what we're doing, but how we're being. And there is a communication that's happening. And so the biggest thing that we as human beings can do is really engage in who we're becoming by who we're being, and who we're allowing to influence us through media, through television, through the conversations. What are we looking at? And it's interesting because art is then replicated out into the environment. What we see on film screens, the horror or the beauty, is then replicated in how we're being. And Mikki, you create incredible movies, incredible work that's making a difference. That's something that you and your wife and now your children are very actively doing. So if you'll start speaking a little bit about what we're visually taking in and how that's affecting us.
Yeah, I would love to. First, I want to put a cap on the conversation of parenthood by saying that, there's so many of us, and I assume that, the majority of your listeners are people that would fall into the category of light workers in some way, people who are concerned about, our environment or our world socially in some way, and are making a concerted effort to do something about it. And for me, the one way that I have identified that is the most certain way to change our world and this planet is through parenting. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a parent, because I engage with all children, all the children at my son's school, not as their father, but as understanding that I'm a father figure to them. And I say all men, carry the father frequency, and all women carry a mother frequency. And how do we interact with all children such that we give them that love and attention that they need, understanding that at the root of all of our world issues right now, like we're in a very challenging time, needless to say. And, I call it, this is the time of the great purge, right? Where everything that's no longer serving the organism of our system is coming to the surface to be purged. But everything can be traced back, actually, to unconscious parenting. Mm. Everything. If you look at the people that we call greedy or bigots or, all the stuff, the people in the politics that right now that are being labeled all of these things, it all somehow comes down to something they were deficient in their upbringing, or they wouldn't be doing those things, or money wouldn't be the most important thing, or power wouldn't be the most important thing. And some might say, well, it could have been their environment or whatever. But if they're given that foundation from their parents, you can survive just about any circumstance on this planet and maintain your morals and maintain your grace through whatever experience life throws at you. So, I take fatherhood very serious. I'm a fun father, and we have a lot of fun, but I take it very serious in understanding that it's a job that actually impacts the future of our planet. And so I just wanted to say that because
and we can talk about this. This is so we won't just gloss over it. If light workers, the parents that you had, if you will just acknowledge for you to be where you are today, at some level they had to be the perfect parents for you to have arrived to where you are. And if you're having conversations in your head about with them on a regular basis, I used to. So this is me talking about me. When I was driving the car, I would have the voices that my parents said, the echoes of what I wish I would have said and could have said, how I could have been different, how they could have been different. And our parents' job is to raise us so far. The rest, if you're on the light worker path, to acknowledge they brought you to this point. And you are a bridge between what is missing in their parenting. Another way to say that is if in your mind you're constantly saying, if my parents were more this or that, I might have had a different path. Or this is what I wish for. That's part of your calling to create that for the future generations, to give it a voice, to give it a creative energy so it's not a block within yourself. you raise yourself to a certain level so far. Your parents, if you're alive at some level, they had to give to you in some shape or form in order for you to be listening to this.
Yeah.
And
Really glad you spoke into that, because it's something that I've learned is that, to be a present father, which is really what the goal is, to be present. I had to heal whatever wounds I may have had, or even just discrepancies with my upbringing, and just to see the perfection in all of that, and to just come into a place of just real simple gratitude for my mother and father. Exactly what you said, just for giving me this experience, for bringing me into this world, and that allowed me then to be my own father and kind of start at that fresh slate of completion, and then get to invent, who do I want to be as a dad, and what does that look like?
Yes, that's so beautiful. So great. Baby, is there anything you want to add?
Well, we don't know as much when we're younger as we do when we're older. And all I can say is that my dad now, he is an awesome dad because he's, much more mature now, much more calm, certainly much wiser, all of that.
Yes.
And he just didn't have that when I was younger and he was younger. Yeah. So I have to be at peace with where he was then and who he is now. I just love. He's such an awesome man.
And I want to speak out to my parents too, because they're listening. And Mom, Dad, I love you. I appreciate you so much. I'm so glad that you're learning the internet and Facebook Live and UBN, and you're watching these shows. And I know if any parent could have done better, they would have done better. And what they didn't do was they didn't know how to do at the time. And if I look back at my dad started being a parent around 24, 25. I mean, I look at 24, 25-year-olds today. I think your dad started even younger.
Right around there.
They're so young. And we have Father Google. I call it Father Google. We can look up and Google anything. But they didn't have Father Google to go to as a resource for our families. Today we're connected. We have access to so much. But our fathers back then only had access maybe to what their fathers did. Maybe to a little bit of what they saw other men represent around them. Yeah. And more than ever, men have it so, I see it as beautiful and difficult. They're expected to be all things to all people, women. They're expected to be best friends. They're, carry my purse, do all of the diaper changing, all of these different roles that there haven't been strong models for. And so they've had to invent the way. At the same time, women are going through this process as well of asking for help, of really finding their voice and defining that they make a difference. Both men and women are learning how they are affected, not just in relationship, but every day with each other, with how films and magazines and how everything has been represented out there. And Mikki, if you'll start from there.
How the media has affected us?
How the media has affected us.
Yeah, certainly a big topic in my life. I have been in front of the camera and behind the camera for now well over 30 years, and I was deeply entrenched in Hollywood and pursuing a very typical career up until 2001, when I found myself, literally found myself at the World Trade Center when it was attacked, and did search and rescue and body recovery for 3 days.
You ran towards the disaster and went in, and you were rescuing, and you actively went in seeking ways to serve and collected other light workers, other people around you.
Yeah, and up until that point, I hadn't really thought about the effect of my industry on the world. But something happened to me when I was on the rubble of the World Trade Center that had me look at a much bigger picture and become aware of this global organism in a moment when I realized I was standing on the very spot that the entire world was thinking about. It was really profound, thinking like all attention is on this spot that I'm standing on right now, like we are connected. And so it's something happened, it's ineffable. I'll never find the words for it. But it had me become aware of my responsibility as an artist and as a filmmaker and as a media maker. And I started to study at that moment. As soon as I left and finally got out of New York and came back to Southern California, I started to really look deeply into and study what happens to our neurology when we experience certain things. And I even went back even further. I've been studying something that I may have even coined this phrase. I don't know, because I can't find it in a Google search, but it's I call it obedience legends. And that's the mythologies and stories that were passed down from the dawn of man, from the cradle of civilization, when we, even back, when we put, carved stories on cave walls, and if you study them, we get that at a certain point, we understood intrinsically, like a baby does. A baby learns so fast, that if I whine, I get milk, and it learns how to, pursue and get what it wants. And early man understood that if the use of fear is incredibly powerful tool to manipulate people. And so tribes, would create scenarios or mythologies about the big volcano monster, and if the tribe wanders too far that way, they'll get eaten. And it was all ways to control the women and to control the slaves and whatever it might be. And we have literally continued to perpetuate that through our modern world. And so if you look at television, if you look at ads, billboards, whatever it is, the majority of them use very carefully the fear that if you don't buy this product, you'll never be complete. So they have to first convince you that you're not complete. So that one way they do that is by saying, look how happy this skinny woman is, and if you don't look like that, well then, you're not complete. And it gets ingrained into the psyche so much that we start to buy into that as if that's, meant for us, or even important or valid in our own life's path. And so we become consumers then. And that's what's, it's a kind of the crux of a lot of our issues here, is we've become these kind of robotic consumers, buying things to try to make our lives better, when we were born with it, everything that we need to have a complete, full, wonderful, expressive, creative life, and to be creators and not consumers, really, I think, which is our true nature. So yeah, it's been an amazing discovery of the past, especially the past 15 years, of really digging deep into what has the media done to our collective psyche, and how has it created this kind of mass hypnosis that I think all of us are in to some degree. And we're waking up from that right now, which is, an incredible thing. We're waking up to actually get how misled we've been, and how much misinformation that's out there. And just in the past year, we've all, begun to see, thankfully, to things like social media, we've begun to see the different media outlets that are absolutely biased and corrupt and just a whole racket for some other cause. It has nothing to do with news. We're starting to learn that now, and gradually becoming our own sources of media, finding our own truth and sharing it. And I think for that in itself, it's a very exciting time to be in this experience together.
It's so important for us to fully embody that fear is manufactured. We're only born with two fears: fear, and really truly one of loud noises is the only one that we don't fully outgrow. And all of advertisement is at a higher pitch than when an ad comes on television. TiVos know, because the volume shifts, and can record out of the TiVo advertisements. It's really important that we're also wired to be safe within ourselves. If there is constant fear around, our hormonal responses make us see less, make our organs of digestion and our organs that are connected to our intuition and to our heart be less connected to ourselves. So we go actively into this having less brain mass ready to be able to tune in to what's actually happening.
Yeah.
So when fear advertisers, media, magazine articles use an element that connects us to fear within ourselves. If you don't do this, something will be lost. Quite often, the message is, if you don't do this, you're going to miss out. And what you miss out with is forever irreplaceable, limited time, right now.
Right.
All of that information is biologically not letting us be able to connect deeply to our intuition, to the mystery of what we're here to create and connect with. And so it's really, really interesting. As parents, or our parents had that vibration, if we're holding that, then the next generation doesn't get the relaxation fully demonstrated to them. So as a parent, as a human being, as someone that wants to create a legacy for those going forward, the cave writers were drawing because they wanted what was true for them to be passed down, the next generations to see it. The temples carved in Egypt, metal can be melted, paper can be burned, but once it's carved into stone, lasts forever.
Yeah.
And the priest, the highest places that only the leaders could go to, demonstrate how to turn on your senses, how to fully be present in your body, activate your senses in the moment so that elevated senses can be available for you to truly make a difference. Mikki, when you were standing at the ground zero, what we called 9/11, that zone afterwards, all eyes were there. All eyes were connected to that energy. And so what was to be created, your senses intensely alive, you fully present, activated this miraculous sense of what is to be birthed through you, that miracle sense coming through. And then the actors, so to speak, or other people that are meant to work with you coming into the fold. After 9/11, you went on to build a company that elevated films and elevated the conversations that the cultural creatives were having with one another. They weren't obeying what was created. They were creating content like no one had ever seen before to empower through their different senses, this sense of connecting to each of our inner dialogues and elevating light work, being present, not needing anything outside of yourself, very sexy and fun, to really be in meditations, cool, taking time to vision, taking time to be with those. Tell us a little bit about that. And for filmmakers that are part of it now, for those, the younger next generation, everyone who has a smartphone is now in media, can create great content.
Yeah, that's really a huge, exciting thing that's happening right now. Like I said a moment ago, that we are becoming the media because we do have high resolution cameras with us at all times, and a lot of things that have been written off as conspiracy theory have been proven lately just because they've been caught on camera. And that's the beginning of something really fantastic. And that's why we do have to fight for, our freedom and use of the internet and our freedom to film our lives in whatever capacity. And those are very, very important freedoms for us never to allow to slip by, because they are the ones that will change the entire game. And so it's all of that is changing right now, and I'm really grateful for that experience. I want to back up a second to use a metaphor for what I've always said happened, what I feel happened to me at Ground Zero was that I went online, and I think that's what we're all in the process of doing right now. What I mean by that is, some of us are old enough to remember when we had our first PCs, our first personal computers, and before the internet, and they were subject and limited to whatever was installed on the hard drive, or whatever we could put in a floppy disk, and that was it. And this is connected to what you said even earlier about our parents did whatever they were given from their parents or whatever, and they didn't have the internet. Well, the internet is a perfect example of what's going on with us on a spiritual, energetic, magnetic level, and that is we're tapping into something that we have been turned away from for eons, for generations, and that is our intuition, our ability to receive the broadcast, the intelligence of nature, really is what it comes down to. And so that situation that was I was thrust into was so much bigger than anything that I thought I was at the time. So much bigger than my ego, so much bigger than my persona, my name, my form, all of that, that it just felt like something happened where it was like it was the first time I plugged in that modem or plugged in that internet, and suddenly a little computer that was limited to what's on its hard drive becomes a supercomputer, because it's now tapped into information from who knows where. And that's the thing that's happening for us right now, is this of us first understanding that where we've been receiving the information from, and these little memory recorders here may not be the best place to derive our information from, because it's a lot of the past, it's a lot of limitations, it's a lot of whatever kind of traumas or heartbreak we've been through, all kind of gets stored up here, and then we make our choices based through that, when there's a real opportunity for us to start tapping into our own intuition and our own truth, and not really necessarily, having teachers and guides and mentors, but kind of stopping that whole need for gurus or leaders, and just tapping into understanding that, it would be so much easier right now for so many people to navigate what's going on politically in our world if they were tapped into that. But unfortunately, fear has, as you said earlier, shut down the thinking mind and the thinking heart to such a degree that we're reacting and not responding to the situation that really needs to be responded to, and instead we're just trying to stop the boogeyman, which all of that is real and valid and definitely needs our attention, but it's not allowing us to embrace the reality of all sides of the reality. Such that we can find ourselves in a position to not perpetuate the same problems that we've been perpetuating for way too long now. So we can actually step into something new within the next year or 4.
It's so beautiful. Thank you so much for that. What are we stepping into? How to make a difference is really, really important. And you're starting to really, let's talk a little bit about how to make a difference right now.
Excellent. My favorite subject right now, because this past year I spent time on the road with Bernie Sanders, and then I spent time on the road with his surrogates, Shailene Woodley and Rosario Dawson and a few others, and as a filmmaker documenting the movement. And I was given, access to wherever I wanted to go and ask all the questions and interview all the, incredible people that were part of that movement. And to get a sense of, what is the next revolution, or what is a revolution that could actually be effective, because a lot of them haven't been, and why, and how do we make change. And so I'm in this place right now of realizing I avoided politics almost my entire life. I wanted nothing to do with it. I did get involved. I got excited about Obama. I liked where he came I liked that he was the first black president. He was hip, all that stuff. It was the first time that I actually got enthusiastic about politics. And then time went by, and I started to get disillusioned again because I think he's done really wonderful things and some really bad things. So I felt again kind of like, oh, did I make a mistake, or was I naive, or I kind of started to back away again. And then Bernie Sanders shows up and started to speak into things that people haven't been courageous enough to say out loud. And it was inspiring because a lot of us knew those points already, but for him to say it in that type of arena and to do it with such integrity and consistency and not at the same time just falling prey to the slander and name calling, but just to call out the important subjects, felt like a higher conversation, one of the highest conversations I think that we've had since, JFK and a few other people that actually I think were in real service to the people. And so I got involved and I got excited about it. And now I'm in this place of realizing that, I spent many years in spiritual communities. I even lived in community for a while with 20 some people and raised my babies in some of these environments and really love and appreciate the power of positive affirmation and meditation and yoga and all these things, so I'm a hippie in that aspect. And but at the same time, I've always had my foot in a boardroom with Fortune 500 top CEO types and in the yurt or the teepee or whatever, at the same time, kind of balancing between these worlds. And the one thing that I can say is that, it's time for us to bridge these worlds. And the people that, are holding the key to a lot of policies and bills and things that really need to happen, that have the power, they want something in their life. And some of them are starting to seek it now. But a lot of them don't even know what it is that they want. They just know that life's not totally working for them. And they kind of fell out of love a long time ago. And now they're just doing this thing. And no matter how much money they have, they don't seem to be fulfilled. And I talk with these guys all the time, or guys or gals, whatever it might be. And so they're seeking something deeper and more fulfilling. And then we have our light worker, healer, tribes. And I really want to encourage everyone who falls into that category to not avoid politics, to actually understand that there's a game that we must play together right now. And it may require us putting on a suit. And it definitely requires us learning a language. When we go into another country, as we visit as tourists, we're limited to the tourist path if we have no command of the language whatsoever. But as we learn the language, we can go off the path. We can start, communicating with the people. If we want to live in a foreign country, we have to learn the language ultimately. Unless you just stay with your limited size community and never want to go beyond that. And in the same thing with politics, there are some real truths that we need to embrace and look at, and make it a game. It doesn't have to be boring. But let's get involved. And for me, it's so much more interesting. I'm absorbing more political video and transcripts and all of that these days than I do movies, even, because it's way better than fiction. I mean, it's more unbelievable.
So beautiful, because I came from, and I love politics. I thought in college, I consumed everything, I guess, medicine, arts. It was, as a young lady with a learning disorder, and ADD is a good one to I was into politics. Confession here, I was a young Republican in Louisiana. That's what my parents were. And I worked in the first Bush campaign as a young Republican. It was the Republican Party was in Louisiana that year. And even in high school, the Model UN, and the reason I believed in the Republicans was Lincoln. I was a huge fan of Lincoln. And slowly over time, my political conversation has gotten beyond the parties.
Yeah, right.
And it has really become understanding the choices and who truly is making a difference in Washington are the people, local people here in whatever county or region you live in, but the ones that they hear from all the time. The reason the pharmaceutical companies or the weapons or all of those, they are heard from all the time in Washington. The reason the politicians don't know what we need, want, or are ready for is because we're not informing them. We're not going out and speaking to them in the languages that they understand and can back over time. And yes, there are a few that aren't doing for their community and their constituents, but the vast majority of local and the officials that we can vote in, the policies that we can truly make a difference when we get. They will listen to us if we speak to them, and as loudly and as clearly as the ones that have set up offices right outside of Washington to really, truly, the lobbyists, all of those, they have smart, beautiful, intelligent people going and speaking to our leaders on a daily basis, saying, this is what's important. This is what your people want. This is what your people want. If we, the people, begin telling our politicians directly, voting is number one. If you do not vote, you're sending a message that you don't truly care. And at the same time, Bernie Sanders, before he endorsed anyone, said, I want you to sign this, that you're going to bring this to the table within the first 100 days of your presidency. You're going to have these particular things in on the docket, you as the president. He endorsed Hillary Clinton. He took 26 days before he endorsed her. And he said, for my endorsement, you've got to promise these things. And that's a contract that they came up with.
Yeah.
That if he throws his support into her campaign, we've got to do similar things. Our local government, we've got to understand what it is that we're voting for, what we have right now in place that we can shift and change, and voting the yes and the no's and the city councils into position. We've got to learn that for ourselves.
Yeah.
And then we've got to vote. And then we've got to stay in the conversation, and letters, notes, social media. What else, Mikki?
Well, just understanding that our voices matter is the big thing, and learning how to communicate with each other. If anyone follows my posts on Facebook, which is the only forum that I really use these days, I try to focus in on one place, as not to dilute conversations, but to really focus and answer as many people as I can back who follow my posts. And I'm always a stand for us to communicate maturely and have a civil dialogue with each other. And so I think, we have to learn that first, because we can't expect, our word is so important. It's our word is what speaks to the people who hold the policies, and it's either going to convince them or it's going to turn them off. And again, learning the language is a big part of it. And so I think we have to learn how to speak with each other, especially the people that we disagree with. And I've learned to back off. I'm a liberal Democrat, all of that, and I also have learned not to. I'm very disillusioned with the Democrats, and I've learned to not identify with any of that anymore.
Yes.
And I fell into this trap for a while of thinking that everything Republican was crazy, and they have a lot of great points. And we do on both sides, and we have a lot of crazy points on both sides. And so it's understanding that we have to meet in the middle somewhere and just kind of drop all those labels and know that at the root of it all, aside from the crazy few 0.1% of the people who just want to rule the world and don't care about anyone else, everyone else wants the same thing. We have the same values and morals. We want to be healthy. We want to be happy. We want to be safe. We want, to not have to be slaves to the system. We don't want to work so hard. We want to have time to enjoy this planet and everything that it offers. And we want to feel connected and be in love, and if we can make that the goal, and in everything that we think, do, and say, make that the goal instead of just condemning people and calling names or whatever, and it's hard sometimes because we see what people write, but we have to be compassionate because there's a lot of fear that's being used against us right now, and it creates cognitive dissonance, in the way that we just get into that, as I mentioned, that reactive mode, and then there's hundreds of millions of dollars being spent in propaganda to convince people of lies. And so it's, we have to have compassion for the understanding that we're all stuck in the system that we're seeking to reinvent right now. And we can only do it by unity, by coming together, and by letting someone have a completely contrasting viewpoint and learn from them, speak and share information, but not just information to make each other wrong, but information to actually say, have you seen this? Does it matter to you? Does it hold any weight with you at all that this actually has happened? And should we not be concerned about this? My view on the political system has been very strong from the beginning. I have said I'm not a fan of either Trump or Clinton at all. I've done deep research on both of them. As a matter of fact, I know some members of Trump's family, so I knew about him well before he ran for president. So I've never been a fan of his ego. And I'm also fully aware of the dangers of Clinton. That said, can we, if I have to, and if it turns out to be the best, way to, the highest move, if it turns out to be that, I would make that move. But can I still not communicate? Can we all not communicate of the dangers? Can we not really have a dialogue and say there's some real dangers happening with Russia right now that we need to be fully on our toes about, and understand that Obama and Clinton have been pushing in the wrong direction there,
Yes.
and now we have Russia teaming up with China and a few things happening there that is very, very serious, and that may trump some of Trump's embarrassing stuff. Can we look at that together and still commit to doing the right thing and find that right thing together, but not go in with blinders on, because that's why history keeps repeating itself. We fall into this trap where we just go, lesser of two evils, okay, just do it. No, everything's fine, fine. I want to feel good about my vote. And then we do it, and then we get broadsided by some of the moves that these people make when we find out, oh, they're still fracking. Oh, wow, yeah, of course they're still fracking. The people that paid for the campaign
Are still doing it.
are still doing that.
Yeah.
So of course that's going to happen. Let's be aware of it now and start the work to actually hold their feet to the fire. If that's Hillary Clinton, hold her feet to the fire.
And
so we can make massive change in the next 4 years that may allow a whole other party to emerge and really great change to happen. Maybe that's the best plan. And if so, let's come together, people, and actually start strategizing on the best way to do that. The worst way to do that is by dividing.
And Mikki, we have 1 minute before we go off air, and I just want to thank you so much for coming on board. And I want to really summarize: don't label yourself with a party. Align yourself with the questions that will allow us to grow into making a difference.
One party human.
One party human.
Yeah.
One party human.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We are going to follow you on Facebook and see and continue the conversation there. Thank you so much for coming on today and for the miracle work that you're doing out there. We are huge fans and we support your work, and we're looking forward to the next conversation.
And likewise, and for everyone who listened, thank you for being here.
Thank you, baby. I would love for you to wrap this up with us.
I love you, the human being that you are. So let's continue this conversation.
We're going to continue this. Thank you, Miracle Makers, for being with us. And we look forward to our next conversation with you next week. And we'll continue on Facebook. And in the newsletter, we'll send a video out with links follow us on Facebook. Follow Mikki Willis, and it's drsarahlarsen.com online. We love you. Have a great week.
Thank you, Miracle Makers.
The past is history, the future mystery. This moment is the gift.